I would say between that time when I knew he was sick and he passed away, it was just um, very heavy. More so smoking and drinking. I'm not a heavy drinker,
Mhm.
but more so smoking. It was one of them situations just where it was a daily thing. And I just after a while, once I moved back here, I did it a little bit, but then after a while, I was just like, man, I was needed to smoke, to eat, to
Mm.
fall asleep, for my mood basically. And I was just like, man, that's not the way. That's not the way I want to be. I don't want to be out here still smoking.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another episode of Flip That Switch. I am your host, Brandon, aka B to the Stiz Naive, and we back with another episode. If you didn't get a chance to watch the previous episode, please go back and watch it. As a matter of fact, before you watch this one, go back and watch that one. But today we're going to be diving into a new episode, and the guy that I'm going to be talking to today is a friend of mine that I've known for 20 plus years. We pretty much been knowing each other half our lives, and I just wanted him to come on so he can give his story and share with us his journey. He's out here just really grinding and just being a single father, taking care of his kids and working. And he just recently moved to Texas to really kind of just get going with career and things of that nature. And so he's been out here just killing it, grinding, just taking care of himself, taking care of his kids, taking care of his family, and really just being the father that he's been called to be. And so, like I said, I've known him 20 plus years and solid dude. He's like a brother of mine. And so without further ado, I'd like to bring on my boy, Jermiah. What's up, man?
What's up, family? What's going on, man?
How you doing, bro?
I'm doing good, man. Can't complain. Just been grinding. Handling business.
I feel that. I feel that. That's what's up. Well, thanks again for doing this episode with me. Truly, truly appreciate you.
Yep.
And we'll just dive right in. So, Jeremiah, man, talk to me a little bit about your upbringing. What was it like for you coming up to where you are today? Talk to me a little bit about how that was.
Well, I'm originally from St. Louis. Um, grew up from humble beginnings. Um, had both of my parents in my life. They split when I was young. When I was like around 8 years old, 8 or 9. They split apart, and I stayed with my mother and grandmother
Hmm.
for that time up until about 15. When I moved with my father. So between that stretch, it was just humble beginnings. Um, living in St. Louis, coming from St. Louis, you see a lot. You see, gangs, you
Hmm.
know, poverty, you see drugs, you see it all. So, um, but I always wanted better. Um, that I knew that wasn't my end all be all story. So
No, for
yeah.
sure. And so, what part of St. Louis did you grow up in?
So I grew up. Well, honestly, so originally I would say all around St. Louis, but where I kind of seen a lot, and where what I can remember is like North County, Pine Line. You know, that's where I kind of seen a lot in regards to gangs and
Yeah.
all that stuff. So that's where I seen. But I'm originally from all over. Because even before the Pine Line, I seen. I lived in a worse neighborhood than that. Before that. So, um, you know, the west side of St. Louis, where it's pretty much like most of my family is from, you know, is pretty rough area. So
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Did you find yourself being easily influenced into that type of activity? So gangs and things of that nature. Did you ever get influenced into that, or you kind of just
I mean, it's kind of like one of them things. So like living in Pine Line, it was more so like you weren't easily influenced. It's just you surrounded by it, you know, and you
Yeah.
know it's kind of like you grow up into it, you know, more type of deal, you know, like yeah, you can have your own choices, but you're still associated, you know, your friends, you know, family, you know, you're associated just by being around, you know, in the areas, you know. So it wasn't a choice like, yeah, you know, I want to be a part of a gang or from this neighborhood or that neighborhood. It's more so like, hey, you know, you grew up in this area, you grew up in this certain neighborhood, you got friends that you're going to school with, you're hanging out with, and you know that rubs off on me. You know, as much as you could be in the house, you know, all day, but hey, at some point you got to go outside. You want to hang out with your friends, and you're
Yeah.
gonna get influenced at some point. So, you
Yeah.
know,
No, for
so
sure.
and I think that's where my father came in at. You know, God rest his soul. You know, he came in and he may have seen things like rubbing off, like okay, like you know, I have two boys. I have an older brother that I was with as well. You know, and he was more so like, you know, I don't want them to see the things that I had to see or go through. So I'm going to try to make a way and, you know, provide for them in a different way, you know, so they don't have to go through that. So I moved away from that though, you know, like once I turned, like I said, once I turned 14, 15 years old, um, I was able to have the opportunity to live with my dad full time when he moved. He was already in Chicago. So
Right.
um, I just made that transition, you know.
So was the reason why he brought you to Chicago is because he was trying to get you out of that lifestyle?
Yeah, 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 for sure, for sure, for sure. Because you know, like I was in sports. You know, I played football, basketball. You know, but from that transitioning, just a lot of things happen. Like when, especially when your father is not there, you know, he can try to mold you as much as he can. You know, from long distance. But you know, when it's those type of situations where you know you're living in one city and your father's in another city, it's hard
Mhm.
to kind of discipline and be that father figure that you really want to be. So I think um, I was against it at first because I was used to being with my mom, and then the main thing that made me want to come up to Chicago was you guys. You know, meeting you. You know, because I think I met you. I met you know Larry. I've been had met Larry, but just
Yeah,
meeting you guys, having that brotherhood. You know, I was like, okay, you know what I mean? So
absolutely.
once I met you guys and then I knew my brother was up there, you know, it was a kind of smooth. Y'all made it so much easier, you
Yeah.
know, for sure.
No, that's what's up. I can appreciate that because when I had first moved back up there, I was kind of looking for friendship and brotherhood because obviously I didn't know nobody, and so just
Yep.
just getting connected around y'all and just really kind of understanding. I think that was my first real taste of like true friendship. You know what I mean? To the point where we just spent so much time with each other, did things together, went places together, went on trips together. I was always
Yes.
going out to STL with y'all, and it was just really fun times. And I think we just created that bond. So I can appreciate that when you came up there, you had us, and we were able to kind of get you acclimated to, out there. So
Yeah, for sure. For
yeah,
sure. Yeah, it was definitely a transition, you know, because when I was back home, you know, it was just me. But you know, of course, the surrounding areas, you know, that I lived in, you know, that's what I was starting to get influenced by. You know, I was, you know, hanging with the wrong crowd. You know, and you know how that goes. You know, you hanging with the wrong crowd, you start messing up in school. You
yeah,
know, and you know, so I was very fortunate and appreciative to make that transition. You know, like right before high school. So
absolutely. Now, when your dad wanted you to come up and live with him, how did your mom receive that? Was she against it? Was she for it? Like, what was her initial reaction to that?
yeah, so my mother like she was going through a lot. She had just suffered a death of her boyfriend, so that was a whole another type of situation. Anyway, she was like very, stressed, and she was going through a lot emotionally, and I wanted to be that support for her. So it was a tough decision for me. She was kind of for it because she was just like, it's going to be a better situation. She's seeing these grades. She's saying I'm not coming home certain days, certain nights. She like, she really wanted me to stay, but she knew it was best for me at the end of the day. She knew that she was making a, you know, long term decision. Good decision. Not saying that I was just a horrible kid or anything. It was just, you
He
know,
was just out there wilding.
he said,
Hey, buddy was out there wilding.
nah, yeah. I mean, you can say just like just the surrounding areas, just hanging out with certain crews, hanging out with certain people, and being influenced. I was, hey, Pokemon cards was getting took, bikes was getting took. Hey,
Hey,
bikes.
yeah,
It was a lot. Drugs. Starting to see people who sell drugs. Like, okay, how does this go on? So I was seeing a lot. In that aspect, but one thing about me is I was my own, always been my own leader. Even the guy, like when I was around these type of people, they knew like not to mess with me. I was my own leader. You feel me? So
yeah.
um, even with my older brother not around, so yeah,
No, I feel that. I feel that. Yeah, yeah, that's what's good. No, it sounds like you made the right choice and a good decision to get out to Chicago and just kind of get away from all that. Now, when you came out to Chicago, did you notice any difference, any similarities between Chicago and St. Louis? Or was it that,
man,
okay,
no, 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 it was like night and day. So like initially, like the St. Louis and Chicago are two different places.
yeah,
Like when I initially moved to Chicago, um, the people, it's way more diverse, especially from where I lived. Where I come from, a lot more diverse because we lived in the suburbs. So Chicago, or of course, the inner city is totally different. But we were fortunate to live in the outer skirts of Chicago. So that I think was a big eye opener for me, being able to see different, nationalities, seeing, people mingle with them amongst each other of different races. That was pretty good for me, and also, just not being around. Now, I'm not saying that everything was just peaches and cream in Chicago in the suburbs. It was still
right,
stuff going on, right?
right.
But like it's a big difference, from where I actually grew up, and then moving to the Chicago suburbs like Woodridge, Romeoville, those areas. Um, it was like two different places, but I still, I understand Chicago. Like it's still gangs, even in the suburbs, So
Yeah,
I stayed away from that type of stuff and did my own thing.
no, for sure. That's what's up. Hey, look, at the end of the day, you got to be your own person, your own individual. And that's how you lead by example. Others see you and they see that, okay, you know what? I'm not getting into gangs. I'm not doing this stuff. And, certain people will gravitate to that, So it's always about inspiring people. It doesn't necessarily have to be inspiring people in a negative way. You can also inspire people in a positive way to want to move like you
Exactly.
move. You know what I'm saying? And so, no, that's dope. All right. So, obviously, like you said, your late pops, he passed, right?
Yes.
And what impact did that have on you? Because obviously, he was the one that brought you to Chicago to be with him, and
Mhm.
obviously to have that father son bond and relationship. And y'all did for a while, you know what I'm saying? And so when he passed, what type of impact did that have on your life?
Well, I mean, my dad, was a hardworking person. He, always made sure that we were taken care of, even long distance, up until he passed away. He always made sure we were straight and good.
Yeah.
Not just financially, but emotionally. Spiritually. Try to keep us grounded. So you know, it was a huge blow. Losing my dad for sure. But as far as like his impact, it's just having a father. It's
It's not
hard to
like,
even explain. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
because I know a lot of my friends that I grew up with, you know, didn't have that privilege. So I don't take that for granted at all.
right. No, that's good. That's good. That's good. Would you say you and your dad were really close?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, so obviously I have what 4 or 5 siblings. So like I was the second oldest. So like you know, he expected a lot of me. Um, as far as like super like close, yes, but like the as far as like quality time every day, nah. It was more so like just like the love. Always making sure that I was good, making sure that I was taken care of, and making sure that I respected him, respected his household, and leading by example. I would say as far as just being that man provider. So and
Yeah,
stand up on certain things as a man.
absolutely,
So that's
absolutely.
what I took more so than just the quality, because being a hard, working. My dad was a worker. He always worked. So I understood that that he's not going to be there every day, all day. Son, do this, or hang out. Let's do this. He wasn't a sports player. Like he didn't play sports or anything, but he was a lecturer. He go give you about a 2 hour conversation about whatever. You know what I mean? About, you know,
Yeah,
all types of stuff. But it's
yeah,
always going to help you grow and be a better person at the end of the day, and open your eyes to certain things. So I always
absolutely.
appreciated that. But did we have a lot in common? Probably not. I mean, he liked to cook. He showed me how to cook. I would say that. Like, he was a cooker. He knew how to cook. I took that away from him for sure, because that was something he took pride in. Um, but and just a hard worker. I took that away from him as well. So
Yeah,
those two things are probably the most biggest things that I took from him.
nice. That's what's up. Now you mentioned you got 4 or 5 siblings. Are you close with them?
Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, obviously we all kind of all apart now. So, I got, brother here, there, everywhere. California, Chicago, one just moved here. We kind of all spread apart. My sister's in Chicago. So we try to stay close. Um, I would say that since my dad passed, it's been, I feel like we all kind of like still processing it.
Okay.
So it's only been 2 years, so we're still kind of processing it, and everyone's kind of on their own time as far as coming together, trying to figure out how to come together, or what have you. So that's one of the things where me as an older brother, I have to make that keep that connection and that relationship strong, even when we're apart in different cities. So
No, absolutely, absolutely. I can appreciate that because I didn't have any. I had 2 half sisters when one has passed, but now I got one half sister. But we
mhm.
don't. Fortunately, we don't have that relationship, that bond and that connection. So I mean, it really is just me being an only child. So I can appreciate having multiple siblings because at the end of the day, when you experience tragedy or experience something like that, all you can really lean on is each other. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And so the fact that you have multiple siblings that you can lean on to help you heal from that process is pretty awesome.
yeah,
Yeah, for sure. All right, so let's talk about single father, right?
yes.
Kids, how old are your kids?
So I have a 15-year-old boy, teenager.
Ooh, high school.
Then I have an 8-year-old daughter. Two kids, and single father. You know, my son actually just moved here
Okay.
from Chicago, so I'm pretty much following the same traits as my dad, low key. You know,
Yeah.
but I'm really just trying to, you know, be an even better father. You know, like I want to be able to spend more time with them individually. You know, seeing what their likes and dislikes are. You know, seeing, you know, just being a better father. That's why I want him here with me, and also my daughter's here in Texas too. So it's very beneficial. You know, for sure.
Yeah. What made you want? Because he was obviously living with his mother, right?
Yep.
What made you want to bring him out here with you?
Yeah. So what made me want to bring him out here? I mean, because he was supposed to have been out. He was with me because you know I only been here for about 2 years. So he was living with me before I moved here. You know, I kind of made that transition for myself to establish myself out here, and uh, I wanted him to come out here right away initially. And you know, he wasn't fully ready. His mom wasn't ready. You know, so it was kind of like, you know, let's give him another year here and see how he does. So um, pretty much, you know, his mom was just like, hey, you know, I think it's time for you to get him, you know, because he's hard headed. You know how that go. You know, like, hey, he liking these girls. He got girls. We got to get him back focused. So I'm like, yeah, I'll definitely get him. You know, I wanted to get him initially, so it was not a problem at all. You know.
Got it. That's what's up. That's what's up. So, and then your daughter, like, talk to me a little bit about that bond. Obviously, the daddy-daughter bond is one of the most important bonds you can have.
Yeah,
What's the
yeah.
bond
So
like with your daughter?
man, she's so outspoken. She's very outspoken. She's a kind of like a tomboy. I can tell she's gonna want to play sports. She plays volleyball, so she's kind of like a tomboy already. She likes sports. She likes playing basketball. She's outspoken, smart, just well-rounded kid, and she's our bond is good. You know, we FaceTime, see each other as much as possible. So of course, she probably won't be living with me because her mom's here, but I try to keep that bond tight and spend as much time as I can with her. So that's that type of situation where me and the mother are not on the best terms
Okay.
in regards to how certain things are, but I kind of put that to the side and make sure that she's good.
Yeah. Now, do you get along with your son's mother? Are y'all
Yeah,
on good
yeah,
terms?
yeah.
Okay. 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 Cool. Cool. So you mentioned that you've been out here. How long have you been in Texas now?
I've been here since last year, so it's only been 1 year actually.
Okay.
One,
And what
one.
made you decide that you wanted to move back out to Texas? Because I know you were here before, then you moved
Yeah.
back to the Chi, and now you're back in Texas. So what made you want to move back to Texas? What was going on to be like, okay, you know what, I need to get up out the Chi, I need to come back.
Yeah. So originally I was here, and
Yep.
I moved back because my father had got sick. So in that process, you know, come to find out he was really, really sick, and you know that was very tough. So I went through that whole transition as far as with just being there, actually living with him while he was sick,
Mm.
and of course, he ended up passing away a few years ago. But I always liked Texas. You know, it was one of them situations where like I said, I just had to make that transition for family purposes, family reasons, to go back home and make sure the family was straight, my son, and then I always wanted to come back. You know, it was just timing. One of them type of just timing. So
Yeah. When he initially got sick, did you go through like a depression or anything? What was it? Did you
not
um,
not not right away, not right away. So like once he was sick, I didn't really realize it, because you don't know if what I mean. Like you don't know if someone's sick until you like it starts like because I would come home from work because I was staying with him when I moved back because, I was just trying to, transition or whatever. So like I was seeing him, every day, and just a lot of things where I was seeing is like, man, okay, I don't know if he's good, and eventually, we had family, everyone coming around, and they were like, "Oh yeah, something's going on. We got to get him to the hospital." Got him into the hospital, and then that's when we realized, like, okay, this is serious, And from there, that's depression, start kicking in. I'm smoking, drinking, doing all those things to try to cover up or keep keep away the pain and not filling those, trying to fill those voids of actually, healing and dealing with those type of situations.
Mm, wow. So you would smoke and you would drink to kind of numb the pain,
Yeah,
and so
for
you didn't
sure.
have to think about it. Wow. When that was happening, what made you actually stop? Like, because obviously at some point things got better for you as far as the depression and stuff. But at what point did you stop the smoking and drinking, and kind of what made you stop?
So I just, I eventually like, so I went on I mean, I've been smoking, on and off even before he was sick. So it just got more heavier, when all that, start happening. So when he got sick, he passed away. I would say between that time when I knew he was sick and he passed away, it was just um, very heavy. More so smoking and drinking. I'm not a heavy drinker, but
Hmm.
more so smoking. It was one of them situations just where it was a daily thing. And I just after a while, once I moved back here, I did it a little bit, but then after a while, I was just like, man, I was needed to smoke, to eat, to
Mm,
fall asleep, and to, for my mood basically. And I was just like, man, that's not the way I want to be. I don't want to be out here still smoking. Smoking is bad, and it can have some huge effects later on in life, or even you know now. So I just made that decision to not do it. And also, I'm a professional, so
yeah,
I want to make that change for myself.
absolutely, absolutely. Wow, I commend you, man. I commend you. You said something important. You said I was smoking to eat because I couldn't eat because I was depressed. I was smoking to go to sleep. Like the normal daily activities that you do in life, you needed to smoke to do those things.
Right? Yeah, yeah, for
Wow,
sure.
wow, that's crazy, man. Wow, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, we all go through stuff, and I'm glad you healed from that and you recognize and realize that. So what do you do? What are you doing professionally?
Yeah, so I'm a logistics coordinator. So I handle like international logistics, transportation, you know. So I'm pretty much the coordinator A through Z. I handle the whole operational side of it, So yeah,
Okay. And then what are some of your goals? Like, what's a 5 year plan for you? What are you looking to accomplish in the next 5 years?
5 years, I want to be a business owner. I want to be married. Um, I want to have my family, all together in one household, you
Mm,
know. So I would say those are the main things, family all together, with the home, of course, and business, start a side business, which I've been looking into doing, for some time. But since this transition kind of held me back, but now I'm kind of getting more settled. So I'm gonna go ahead and start pursuing that. And yeah, man, just spend more time with my kids, and watch them grow and be there for them, as much as possible. It's the
no,
main thing.
no, for sure. And you said your son is 15. Is he in sports or anything?
Yeah. So he plays football and basketball.
Okay.
We're trying to get him enrolled now. We're actually going to be going up there this week on Friday to get him enrolled, and hopefully he can join like the summer camp. That's what I'm trying to get him involved in. At least get him in the summer camp and get him going. That's the main thing. Get him back into high school basketball shape. It's not easy, so that's the main thing for him. And yeah, that's it, man.
I'll get you out of here on this question. I always ask this question to my guests. If
Okay.
you were talking to, let's say, 23-year-old, 24-year-old Jeremiah, and he came to you and was like, "Hey, man, I need some advice, just life advice. I'm struggling right now. I'm being easily influenced. I'm getting caught up in some things that I know is wrong for me, but this is just my environment. Right now, I just need some advice on how to navigate. What type of advice would you give
Man, at 23, if I could if I was to say 23 again, or be like, hey, if I was to give that my younger self that advice or some advice, it would be to not take that for granted. Don't take that age because we get a lot of people where they're like, oh, I'm only 23. I can mess up. I could do this. I could do that, and I still have time. I would say, you know, take 23 as serious as possible.
them?
Use it. You know, yeah, you're going to make mistakes, but take advantage. If anything, because I have brothers that's young, at that around that age group, and I always tell them, to take advantage of it, because once you hit a certain age, time starts flying. So,
Yeah,
um, try to, take advantage of that time and take it serious. Stay on top of your game. Start, figuring out your passions and things that you really love to do in life, and go after it.
yeah.
And the main thing is, I like this because I work and I want to be an entrepreneur. I'm still trying to pursue that. But I always tell them, to think of a business plan, try to be your own boss. You know, you don't want to work for no one for the rest of your life. So that's the main thing.
That is
If
awesome.
I could
That
tell
is
any
awesome.
23-year-old that, I would tell them that, work on trying to, be your own boss. Because when I was 23, it was like, I had my son at 21, so I was forced to kind of get into the working, field and work, and find good jobs. Fortunate enough too, but um, I was focusing on that instead of, my passion and business. What I wanted to actually pursue, which is be an entrepreneur. But I had to actually, work and provide for my son. So
Absolutely. Wow, that is awesome. Take it serious. At 23, yes, like you said, yeah, you're gonna mess up, you're gonna make some mistakes,
mhm.
but take being young, take it serious. Don't just take it for granted and think just because you're young, you got time, you can mess up because at the end of the day, you never know what'll happen. You'll look up and you'll be 30 years old and 33 years old and you'll still be like, oh, I still got time, I still got time. No, like time is ticking. You
Yeah,
never know how long you're going to be on this earth, and you just don't know when God is going to call you home. So it's like you have to take every moment with seriousness, even being young.
yeah,
Like I can imagine like figuring out my passions at 22 and 23 and then doing it. Like, can you
right,
imagine where I would be right now? Can you imagine where we would be right now? Like if we
exactly.
started young.
Yeah,
So yeah, so definitely I would say also I would piggyback off of that and say take it serious and intentional. Be intentional about what you're trying to go after and accomplish. So that's dope, bro. That's dope.
yes, yes, yeah. At the end of the day, like you said, time is ticking. We can, even at that age, anything can happen, and your time can be cut short at any point. So you got to live it. And that, even for myself, even at this age, that's how I'm starting to look at it too, as well. to go after it every day and try to figure something out, to set yourself apart.
Well, you know what you're doing it, man. You out here doing it and you grinding, and at the end of the day, it's all gonna work out as long as you continue to have integrity, have good character, and just continue to do your thing, man. The sky's gonna be the limit for you, bro. Like for real, for
Without,
real.
without,
Well, this was good, man. I appreciate you coming on and doing the episode with me. I hope this has helped somebody. And just want to say thank you again, bro. Like for
no
coming
problem, man. I
on.
appreciate you for having me on, and yeah, I appreciate it.
All right, cool. Well, make sure y'all are following us on IG where we post reels from the episodes. And if you can't follow us, you can listen to us wherever you get your podcast at Flip That Switch. So make sure whether you're watching us or you're listening to us, you're tapping in with us, as well as if you'd like to be a guest on the show. If you got a story you want to get out there to the masses and you think your story is something that can resonate with people, please make sure you hit me in the comments. Let me know. I'd love to sit down and converse with you and get your story out there. So if that's you, make sure you hit me in the comments. But other than that, Jay, thank you again, bro. And we're going to see y'all in the next episode, and we out. Peace.
Peace.